Hello, Minnesota Golden Gophers fans. Welcome to another episode of Inside Gophers Nation, the official podcast of Gophers Nation of the On3 Network covering Minnesota Golden Gophers athletics. My name is Dylan Callaghan-Croley, the publisher at Gophers Nation. And thank you for joining us today as we preview the Minnesota versus Rutgers matchup on a Saturday afternoon at Huntington Bank Stadium, 11 a.m. kickoff, the game televised on the Big Ten Network. For those watching at home, it'll be the Golden Gophers' first Big Ten game of the season after falling to California in Week 3, 27-14. The Golden Gophers had the Week 4 off of the bye week, and now we'll get back into action with 9 games remaining on their season. They do have one more bye week coming up, and it's a big game for both Minnesota and Rutgers going forward when it comes to the rest of their season and how it could potentially impact bowl eligibility. Before we get into today's interview with the Night Report's Alec Crouthamel, we do have a special offer for you if you are not a subscriber to Gophers Nation. Not a subscriber to Gophers Nation? That's okay. It's never too late to join. When you subscribe, you just don't get access to our weekly visitors list. You unlock a ton of perks designed for Minnesota fans. First, you'll get Inside Gophers Nation access, our premium message board, which will allow you to connect with fellow Gophers fans, chat with the staff, and be a part of the conversation like never before. Additionally, we'll also provide in-depth breakdowns every week, analytics, stats, and insights on the Golden Gophers, their opponents, and everything in between. We also break down what recruits bring to the program, helping you understand how each new player fits into the team's future, whether it's reviewing the last game or scouting the next matchup or a future Golden Gopher, we've got you covered. We also offer dedicated team coverage every week. We bring you the latest scoops and updates on Minnesota football, basketball, and hockey, and much more as well. If recruiting is your thing, you'll love our full recruiting coverage. Stay up to date on the Gophers' top targets, offers, commitments, and much more. But that's not all. Your subscription also gives you access to full network access. Get access to everything on the On3 and Rivals networks, all On3 fan sites, message boards, Rivals recruiting and high school coverage, and insights from some of the nation's top analysts, including Andy Staples, Brad McMurphy, Pete Nakos, and Ari Wasserman, plus many, many more. And if that's not enough, there's even more waiting for you when you sign up today. Become part of the Minnesota Golden Gophers community with Gophers Nation. Start for $1 your first week and get complimentary access of the Athletic included with your membership. That's right. Start for $1 your first week and get a complimentary year of the Athletic included with your membership. Today I'm joined by Alec Crouthamel of our Rutgers sister site on On3, the Night Report. Alec, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us to talk about this. For Minnesota, their Big Ten opener, Rutgers opened Big Ten play last week against the Iowa Hawkeyes. So I guess the first question I guess I have is the non-conference schedule for Rutgers was on the easier side. I mean, Ohio did give them a game in Week 1. Ohio later upset West Virginia, so that was, still not great to have that close of a game against a Group of 5 opponent, but Ohio has proven to be a quality opponent. You had another weak MAC opponent, which off the top of my head I am blanking on right now. I believe it was Miami, Ohio, and then they faced Norfolk State before facing Iowa last week. Over the first 4 games of the season, what have you learned about this Scarlet Knights team?
I've learned a couple things. I guess first, it's kind of gone 2 different directions. The offense has been even better than I expected it to be, and the defense has been worse than I expected it to be. So it's kind of like the general, I guess, level of the team and how they've played is kind of the same, but it's gone a little bit differently. Where one part's a little bit better, one part's not as good. So it's been an interesting season so far. I think. I mean, having the best passing offense that Rutgers has seen in pretty much a decade has been pretty fun to watch just from a pure football watching perspective. But the defense hasn't, it's been a problem so far. So if they can figure it out, I think this team has a high ceiling, but that's the key is figuring it out, which is a lot easier said than done.
Absolutely. Looking at the stats right now, you talk about that Rutgers defense giving up 192 passing yards a game, which isn't bad, but the run defense on 151 yards a game, and even more importantly, 5.1 yards per rush attempt. Has it really just been the run defense that's been the major issue for them this season? Has the pass defense also been an issue and is just kind of being covered by an even worse run defense? What's kind of been the issue there on defense for Minnesota? I mean, for Rutgers so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think the run defense has suffered more than the pass defense, but the pass defense hasn't gotten off to a great start. They've kind of struggled with big plays, as
Okay.
particularly in the passing game, and then in the run game. There are times when, the defensive line just hasn't been able to get that push up front. But we've seen flashes of them play much better. I feel like in those runs up the middle, they've been largely very good this season. The second half against Iowa, particularly in the third quarter, I thought they had their best stretch of play so far in the season. They were able to really get some stops, kind of get into the backfield. So if they can take those improvements and put them into the rest of the Big Ten schedule, there could be serious improvement. But yeah, I definitely think the run defense has suffered more than the pass defense. But the pass defense hasn't been great either. There's been a lot of big plays.
Yeah, and looking at the game by game breakdown, if one thing stands out on the run defense side of things, though, it is that week one against Ohio, 6.5 yards per carry. The next week 5.3, the next week 4.7, and the last week against a very run heavy Iowa team just 4.2. Now part of that might be it's the Iowa Hawkeyes. They're going to run the ball 40, 45 times a game. But they did a good job of shutting down not shutting them down, but slowing them down on the ground. They give up 4 rushing touchdowns. But at the same time, outside of that Norfolk State game, which is against obviously an FCS opponent, the pass defense has allowed 67% completion percentage, 60.9 and 66.7. So it definitely seems like while they may not be giving up a ton of yardage the last 2 weeks, they did give up 239 against Ohio, 251 against Miami, Ohio. They are allowing quarterbacks to be efficient and, like you said, not getting a ton of push up front, not getting in the faces of quarterbacks, and obviously not also breaking up passes uh, once it does get out of the quarterback's hands. Definitely going to be interesting this weekend to see how Rutgers plays against a Minnesota offense that, could be missing Darius Taylor, who's obviously one of the best running backs in the Big Ten when healthy. They are 2-6 now, I believe. When he does 2-7 when he doesn't play for the Golden Gophers since 2023. And then Drake Lindsey, he has flashed at times at quarterback, but also hasn't put together a huge performance just yet. So it's going to be a very interesting matchup between those two. Shifting the focus to the offensive side of the ball, I mean, the big name here that everybody is going to want to talk about is Ethan Callaghan-Croley, the former Golden Gophers quarterback. He's been off to a really good start this year. 86 for 125, over 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, just 1 interception. He has seemed to take a big step from last season when he completed just 53% of his passes to this year. What have you seen from Ethan this season? Is it just the development, or do you think he's playing with just that much more confidence? Is it the receivers that he has around him? We'll talk about them in a second, but KJ Duff and Ian Strong have been off to phenomenal starts as well.
I think it's both. I think it's a combination of all of those things, really. He has really developed as a passer over the offseason. He said, before the season and even during the season, he really wanted to get more accurate and kind of work on that before the season for his last year. And I think his mechanics look great. It looks like, because his mechanics they were good, but they weren't, as good as they are now. He's getting the ball out quickly as well. So, the offensive line has been fairly good this year. But even if they lose on a rep, he's able to get the ball out quickly. His receivers, like you mentioned, have been excellent. Their size, their catch radius really helps him out, even when he throws, even when he's not the most accurate. But he has been largely accurate this year. I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, he completed 53% of his passes last year. The first 4 games this year, he's pretty much almost at 70%. So that's a huge jump. But yeah, I just think, you can really see the market improvement of him throwing the ball. Just looking at, what he looked like in the passing game last year versus how he looks through the first 4 games this year. Just the way the ball comes out of his hands. He's getting some easy throws as well from his receivers where against some of the lower level non-conference opponents, they're terrified of letting Strong and Duff and Sheffield get over the top. So they're really giving them a lot of space. And I think Kirk Sherrock has done a great job taking advantage of that, where they just draw up a lot of intermediate throws, and just making life easy for the entire passing game. Um, those intermediate throws, the average depth of target's been pretty high, but that's because there's not a lot of just like 2 or 3 yard routes. There's a lot of like 8 to 10 yard routes that, are being really efficient. There's in and out breakers, things like that. So the passing game has just really looked like a well oiled machine. And a lot of that is due to the improvement of Ethan Kaliakmanis and his work with Kirk Shiraka.
Going to those wide receivers, the one that stands out to me is KJ Duff. You talk about that size, 6'6", 219 pounds. A lot of schools recruit him as a tight end coming out of high school. Rutgers is given the opportunity to play wide receiver, and last season as a freshman, he impressed. 27 receptions, 425, and 1 touchdown. But this season, 3 or 4 games, he's just been super impressive. And you saw him do it against Ohio, Miami, Ohio, Norfolk State. But last week against Iowa, who is historically a very good defense, 7 receptions for 92 yards. And it's just not the size. He's pretty good speed and athleticism to go with that. He definitely seems like a matchup nightmare for opposing defenses so far this season, and I imagine that's how Rutgers has been using him heavily. Just how fun has it been to watch his development from this last year to this year so far, and what has been your biggest takeaway from KJ Duff through the first 4 games this year?
Yeah, he definitely showed flashes last year. I think the biggest thing for him is just getting more reps. I mean, he's been that main number 2/number 3, him and Sheffield both behind Ian Strong. And even when Ian Strong missed the game against Norfolk State, he was the number 1 guy. He stepped up and had over 100 yards. I think similarly to Strong, just his catch radius with his size is really impressive. He's made a lot of highlight reel grabs, like against Norfolk State. He had a one-handed catch on the sideline where him and the defensive back were kind of going at it with each other. And Ethan really put the ball where it needed to be, just on the sideline where nobody could get it except for him. He just stuck out his hand and grabbed it. So it's just those like highlight reel plays that have been really fun to watch with him. And I mean, I think he's just going to keep getting better. I mean, we've seen the trajectory that Ian Strong has been on, even from his first game as a true freshman. You could tell there was something there with him, and he was a guy who came in as a safety. So just watching Strong's development, and then watching Duff behind him has been really fun to watch, and just that progress that Duff has taken, even had a game stepping in as the number 1 option, I think has been really valuable. And I think he really has a bright future just because of that size, the athleticism, and he has some really great hands too.
Yeah, and the size of the entire Rutgers wide receiver room really stands out. It's been something that Greg Schiano and his coaching staff have uh, you know, made a priority when recruiting wide receivers. Just going down the list a little bit, talk about KJ Duff at 6'6", but and some of these guys, I'm sure haven't made a big impact on the field yet. But Trent Osborne 6'3", Ian Strong 6'3", Fama Torre 6'3", Vernon Allen 6'2". I mean, I'm going down the list. There's definitely quite a bit of smaller guys which you definitely need, but they have a strong handful of wide receivers there that are 6'1" and above and have that size differential to take advantage on your smaller cornerbacks, which is definitely going to be something that Minnesota is going to have to be you know cognizant of this week. Ian Strong, have to talk about him, just posting huge numbers this season when on the field. 100 plus yards every game. Last week against Iowa, 8 for 151 and no touchdowns, but averaged 18.9 yards per reception. Not a lot of Minnesota fans may know about Ian Strong. Not a lot of Big Ten fans may know about him in general. Just what can you tell us about Ian Strong, who's just, like I said, been really impressive here through 3 games and is very well on pace to shatter his numbers from last year of 43 receptions and 667 yards.
Yeah, like I mentioned, he was recruited as a safety. He was a 2-star safety at that, for Rivals rankings, at least when we were with them.
Sure.
So he came in, and I believe it was very early on in his first training camp. The coaching staff realized, all right, this guy's got to be a wide receiver. And it's a move that's really worked out. Like I mentioned, in his first game against Northwestern as a true freshman in 2023, he had a really highlight reel impressive touchdown catch in his first game, and then from there things just kind of took off for him. So his skill set really fits well for an NFL wide receiver. He's really big. He has great separation, and he can catch the balls really well as well. Like, there was a play against, I think it was Miami. It was either Miami of Ohio or Ohio, first or second game, where he runs a slant route. Ethan kind of throws it a little bit behind him, but he reaches back, catches it, and then just bursts through the secondary for a 17-yard touchdown. So, yeah, his development, he legitimately looks like an NFL wide receiver. He's just able to, I think the thing that separates him from someone like Duff, who's still developing and can get to that point, but Strong, I think, just has so much easy looks for him, where he can really get separation on whether it's in breakers or out breakers, things like that. And it's a big reason why Rutgers' passing offense was so efficient through the first 4 games, because they're able to get him, because of his ability to go over the top. Like you saw against Iowa, he had that really impressive deep ball where the Iowa cornerback played it really well. He timed his punch at the ball really well, but Strong, again, kind of his name, Strong, he used his strength to haul it in. Yeah, he just looks like he can really do it all, really. I guess the straight line speed isn't, the likes of someone like Ben Black or DT Sheffield on the team, but
Sure.
just that ability to catch to really move the Rutgers offense, keep the chains moving. He's just an efficient wide receiver. He can really get the ball from a lot of different angles as well. So, yeah, he's really broken out into that true number 1 option.
And just statistically, this season it has been mostly KJ Duff and Ian Strong that Callaghan has targeted. He does have obviously another almost 40 receptions to other receivers, but those two make up 48 of his 80. Well, those two have 48 receptions this year. DT Sheffield, somebody you mentioned briefly, 15 for 252 this year. I know when I was looking at the offense for Rutgers earlier this season, it was interesting. If you look at it by deep passes, intermediate, and short passes, it seemed like Duff tended to be a little bit more of when he makes a catch. It's more of the deeper plays. Strong is intermediate to deep, and then Sheffield's kind of the short. He makes the catch within short yards, but he's really good after the catch. Picks up a lot of yards after the catch, which helps his 16.8 yards per reception. Because you look at it, a lot of those receptions were within 9 yards, but he's just, as I said, really good after the catch there. Shifting to the Russian offense for Rutgers, averaging just 3.7 yards as a team this year, but Antoine Raymond, the sophomore, 61 carries for 310 yards, 7 touchdowns. Just quickly, what have you seen out of Raymond this season? Scarlet Knights did lose C.J. Campbell for the season, I believe, which means Jayshon Benjamin, I guess, will be the primary backup going forward. What does Benjamin bring when Raymond's not on the field, and how confident do you think the Scarlet Knights are in Benjamin being that number 2 now with Campbell out for the year?
I think the staff is very confident in both of those guys. I mean, they've really been talking for the entire offseason, even going back to the spring, about the true 3-headed monster at running back with Campbell, Raymond, and Benjamin. So I always thought it was interesting that Benjamin was always in the mix there as that number 3 guy, even though kind of the consensus was that it would be Campbell and Raymond kind of running the show. So I think the coaching staff has a lot of confidence in Benjamin because of what they've seen from him. But for Raymond, he's developing well. I mean, he's a guy that reclassified into the 2024 class because his school, Clearwater International down in Florida, ended up closing. So he ended up coming to Rutgers early, which, I mean, unfortunate for the school, but hey, good for Rutgers. Yeah. I feel like he's really developed well this offseason. I don't want to say he looks like Kyle Monangai because that's a very It's a very, very high bar to clear, but he has some flashes of it where he has some of the footwork and the vision. Obviously not as good with the obviously the breaking tackles, the balance, the contact balance, things like that. But he's definitely developing into what could be in the future a Big Ten bell cow back. So he also has a big eye for the end zone. I think he's averaging like a touchdown a game he plays in.
Yeah.
I think he has 7 touchdowns already this year
Yep.
as well, which is largely impressive. I mean, that's like almost 2 games. So, yeah, he's big in the red zone. The rushing offense hasn't been as efficient this year as it has been in years past. Um, I feel like the run blocking at times has let up a little bit of push on the inside, but it just feels like the rushing attack isn't as fearful as it is this year, and that's where the passing game comes in to kind of
Sure.
the roles have kind of flipped where the passing game has become the catalyst for the offense. The run game is kind of like an aside, I guess I would say. Um, so yeah, I'm interested to see how this run game kind of builds as the season goes on. Obviously, going to be Raymond and Benjamin. I think the loss of Campbell is going to really hurt because he was just explosive. He had this factor of he could get a ball cut and then he would just burst through.
Yep.
He has that explosiveness that the other two guys don't really have. So I'll be interested to see how this run game kind of improves or develops as the season goes on with those two.
Absolutely. And I mean, Rutgers very quietly has become a very strong program when it comes to running back development. Obviously, Kamanan guy, but Isaiah Pacheco obviously was a big part of that as well. And while he hasn't maybe necessarily had the career that he's so far in the NFL so far, he's still carved out a quality role with the Kansas City Chiefs there. Uh, when this Rutgers offense does get thrown off schedule, uh, they are averaging 41 points per game, averaging or almost 450 yards of offense per game. So it doesn't happen often. Still scored 28 points last week, but when they do get thrown off schedule, um, has there been any tendencies that you know? Is it usually shooting themselves in the foot or yeah? And what has when it's not worked? What has been the culprit for Rutgers?
We kind of saw this last week in the second half against Iowa. I mean, they scored 3 touchdowns in the opening quarter and a half, and then the rest of the game they only scored 7 points. I think what Iowa did was they were very, very physical. Their DBs were kind of all over the Rutgers receivers. It was kind of like that both ways, really. It was a very physical game in the defensive backfield. So they were able to press the Rutgers receivers because Iowa has the athletes and the confidence in their defensive backs, particularly their safeties, where they're not afraid of letting a guy get past them, just run it straight through like on a post or go route. So they were able to really press up and be very physical, and that caused a lot of problems for the passing offense where, guys like Duff and Strong, they just couldn't get free because they're getting pressed at the line of scrimmage and Iowa's being very physical with them. So that kind of slows the whole thing down. So that's the biggest thing is just kind of working through when you get pressed and things like that, where you don't have those easy button throws or they're not as easy when the physicality is there and there's a lot of DBs kind of hovering around you. How does the offense adjust? In the first half, late in the first half against Iowa, we kind of saw there's a little bit more involvement from the tight ends. We haven't really seen a lot of involvement in the passing game from the running back, so I wonder if that's a potential adjustment to make as well. So it's just all about adjusting to how the defensive backs play you. If they're going to play way back and give you a lot of space, and you can do a lot of the same things that they did in the first 3 games. But if a team plays you like Iowa, you got to figure out a way to adjust to that. And that was where the run game, not being as efficient as it should be, kind of came back to bite them because when the pass game slowed down, then they couldn't really get big yards running the football either, which in turn set up some, third and longs and stop some momentum on the drive. So it's all about adjusting to how the defensive backs are playing against these wide receivers. That's kind of going to determine the offense's efficiency.
Sure. And then kind of just opposite for the defense. If you were Minnesota this week, how would you attack this Rutgers defense?
Definitely running the football. I mean, obviously, AJ Turner and Darius Taylor potentially being out would definitely be a big blow. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you have confidence in your offensive line, just seeing if you can get some push. I feel like there's been some to be desired with the coaching as well. So kind of trying to get those big plays through the air would be big as well. I feel like the safety duo for Rutgers, Jet Elad and Kaj Sanders, there's a lot of talent there, but the performance just kind of hasn't been there. So kind of testing those two. I feel like the cornerbacks have been good, I guess. I guess the thing with Rutgers as a whole, their defensive speed as a team, as a unit, just isn't above average in the Big Ten, I would say. So definitely testing that, trying to work the run game, trying to get that push on the offensive line. I think that was the biggest thing that's kind of given Rutgers some trouble. And I know Drake Lindsay isn't really a quarterback run guy, but they've had some real trouble containing some mobile quarterbacks as well. So I guess if there's some lanes open for Lindsay, he could potentially take those. We'll have to see.
For sure. And Lindsey, yeah, not a dual threat quarterback by nature, but definitely has the ability, if needed, to pick up some yards with his legs. Just two last ones here, and the last one being a prediction. But looking at both of these teams' schedules, it's kind of in a similar place. Early on, their schedules, definitely seemed like they'd be good. You could probably pencil in 2 to 3 wins. Rutgers got 3 early wins. Minnesota got 2. There's obviously a couple games where you would say probably could pencil in as losses for Minnesota. It would be Oregon or Ohio State. For Rutgers, you look at maybe Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. But the way that this season has gone on for some of Rutgers' upcoming opponents, I mean, after this week they got a bye, but then they head to Washington, then they come home face Oregon, and then face Purdue, Illinois on the road, home against Maryland, at Ohio State, and then home against Penn State. That's not a easy end of an easy next 7 games for Rutgers after this week. So I don't want to say this is a must-win game for Rutgers because we're only 5 weeks in the season, but you look at the rest of the schedule, Rutgers definitely seems like a team that is improved and is going to be able to compete in a lot, if not all, these games. But there's a lot of toss-ups in these games. Probably going to face at least 3 top 10 opponents along the way. This feels like a quite important early season game for Rutgers when it comes to bowl eligibility going forward. Because I mean, the only bad team left on the schedule right now, it feels like, is maybe Purdue, and even the Boilermakers are improved from last year.
Yeah, I think this is as close to a must win, so to speak, as it gets in September because, losing to Iowa last week, especially the way that they did, where they left some points on the table on special teams and just overall didn't execute to the level that they needed to. It felt like a big missed opportunity. And now the margin for a bowl game is kind of razor thin. It feels like you need this game to kind of stay on that track
Right.
where it seems like the wins, if you win this game, then all you need to do is beat Purdue and Maryland. I mean, well, again, easier said than done because both teams look much better than last
Right.
year. Then you're kind of on your way to get into a bowl. If you lose this game, you're going to have to beat one of Washington or Illinois on the road, in addition to Purdue and Maryland, anyways. And I don't feel nearly as confident in either of those. I mean, I think Washington's going to be really scary. I think they're going to give Ohio State a little bit of a scare this
Yeah.
weekend. I'm really in on that offense. So, yeah, this game, it really is like a season on the line type game in September. If they lose this game, then yeah, the margin for error is razor thin for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it would definitely take having to try to pull off one of those upsets of maybe even Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State, maybe being the difference between going bowling and not. Uh, Now, if they handle business obviously against teams like Purdue, Illinois, and Maryland, they're in a good spot. But yeah, like you said, we've seen it with Minnesota plenty of times before. Minnesota's made bowl games in each of the last 6 full seasons. But it definitely, it comes down to, uh, just one game really being the difference between obviously making a bowl game or not when it's in a conference like the Big Ten, when, you got maybe 3, 4 teams at the top that are much better than everybody else. You got maybe 2 or 3 at the bottom, but then you have, 12 teams in the middle that are really, really close to each other, and just a player or two can separate all these games. So, yeah, and I think on Minnesota side of the schedule, quickly for our listeners. It's perhaps a similar spot. Obviously, Ohio State and Oregon are tough spots. And then you got Nebraska and Iowa coming up. Michigan State is improved. They finish off with Northwestern and Wisconsin, which Northwestern maybe a little bit better, but still not a great team. Wisconsin, who knows what the Badgers are going to be by the end of the season. But Minnesota, over the next, what is it, 9 games left, seven games, not counting the last 2 games, or this is the stretch that's really going to decide the season. They really need to go probably 4-3 here to really make sure that they go bowling this season. So it'll be very interesting. But going back to this week, Minnesota Rutgers, 11 a.m. kickoff local time in Minneapolis. How do you feel like this one's going to go, Alec? Who do you have coming up on top? And I guess if Rutgers is going to win this game, who do you think is going to be the difference maker?
I think this is going to be a really big time offensive battle. I think both passing offenses are going to really get some momentum going. I think the first team to 30 probably wins. So I'm going to say Rutgers does end up getting there because, again, it's kind of like one of those games where you kind of put it all out there. I'm going to say Rutgers wins. I'll go 35-31 for a final score. And I think if Rutgers wins, I think DT Sheffield is going to be a guy that could be an X factor in this game.
Sure.
He hasn't seen as much involvement the last couple games. There was a couple, times where Iowa was being kind of handsy with him in the past game, to be completely honest. But his explosiveness, you mentioned, he's a great guy to get underneath and use his run after catch ability. He's also another guy that can go over the top in the slot. We've seen Rutgers run a few kinds of slot fades to him, and he just burst past the DB. He's explosive. So I think if Rutgers wants to put up some big points and get the passing offense back where it needed to be, I think he's going to play a big role in that.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all I got for you today. So thank you for coming on the podcast to break down this game. It was definitely a good conversation. I think our listeners learned a lot about the Scarlet Knights coming into tomorrow's game. And if anybody wants to learn more about Rutgers, where can they find you on social media, or where can they find your work?
So, you can follow me on Twitter at AlecCR12. And then also for our site, The Night Report, it's I believe it's just theNightReport.net. Let me make sure I got the right one. Our site is called The Night Report, so even if you just Google it, it should be able to pull that up. So if you just go to thenighreport.com, it'll bring you to our site. We got a lot of Rutgers content as well. So, it was a great time. Thanks for having me on again. It was great talking, previewing this game. I think it's going to be a really good game for what it's worth. I mean, there's so many storylines going into this game. Rutgers and Minnesota, they just flip back and forth. Yeah. Players, coaches, you name it.
Yeah, two teams that are very highly familiar with each other, obviously from top to bottom. And the one thing we really didn't talk about, obviously, was a storyline last year, storyline this year, but Ethan this year coming back to Minneapolis. I'll be very curious to see how the Minnesota faithful treat him on Saturday. He had a quality performance against the Gophers last year in Piscataway, so I'll be interested to see if he kind of lives up to the moment once again this week, going into enemy territory this time at Huntington Bank Stadium, and seeing how he performs. But thanks for joining us again here on Inside Gophers Nation, Alec, and we'll definitely have to talk again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate Alec joining us for today's podcast. I thought that was a great in-depth interview to learn more about the Scarlet Knights. If you want my prediction, you're not going to be able to get it here today. You're going to have to go over to Gophers Nation on the On3 Network, get my prediction there. We'll have that up later here today. But until next time, everybody, thank you for joining us on an episode of Inside Gophers Nation. Don't forget, if you're not a subscriber to Gophers Nation, go over today, join, become part of the Minnesota Go to Gophers community with Gophers Nation. Start for $1 your first week and get a complimentary year of the Athletic included with your membership. You can find those links in the description below. Until next time, I should say, thank you for listening, everybody, and we'll talk to you all real soon.